Hello and welcome to the Joe Ligato Show. I'm your host, Dr. Joe Ligato, and today we're going to be talking about the military buildup in the Middle East and the Mediterranean Sea. And we see a number of things that should be pretty concerning to people here. And we see here this post by Lucas Gage, and it shows that in the past 24 hours, the United States has made more than 20 cargo aircraft deliveries, following yesterday's more than 60 deliveries. Under the pretext of supporting Israel, Western countries are building significant influence in the Middle East, and war experts note it's worth mentioning that similar shipments were conducted about 6 months before the invasion of Iraq. So I don't have confirmation that that is a true statement, but it does certainly sound true that you would have certain military buildups, supply buildups within the hours preceding an invasion of a country. So we have this other post by Megatron here, and this is, from what I understand, confirmed information. Approximately 50 U.S. military transport planes flew into the Middle East within the past 24 hours, and he says there will be an escalation. This was on October 29th. And so we see here that these are transport planes, and that's carrying troops. And we see nearly all of these are from America, although the first two on this list on the upper left-hand side are from the United Kingdom. And so there's every reason to be concerned between the deliveries, between the troop transports, and then we have here from Sprinter, and they get this information from Israeli media, which is that more than 50 ships from 11 countries in the Mediterranean and Red Sea waters for the first time since the end of World War II. So to put that in context, Israel has had a number of conflicts with its neighbors, and it has never had this amount of warships within the Mediterranean and Red Seas. Or I shouldn't say never. It hasn't had this amount of warships in the Mediterranean Sea and Red Sea since its existence, Israel's. Okay. And so we have deliveries, we have troop transports, we have warships from a variety of countries, primarily the United States. And to end this off, we have this translation of a document from the Israeli Ministry of Intelligence telling us exactly what they plan on doing, what the Israelis plan on doing. And so this is a post by Michael Tracy, which has gained a lot of traction over these prior few days. The proposed strategy outlines the evacuation of non-combatant civilian population from Gaza to the Sinai Peninsula. This strategy has several implications. And so moving the Palestinian population to Sinai Peninsula is something that the Israelis have wanted to do for quite a while. They believe that in a greater Israel concept, and so they want to get as much of that territory as possible, and they're pushing the indigenous Arabic population out of that territory, and pretty much everyone is just kind of allowing them to do that, even though population displacement on that scale is considered to be a type of genocide. We see location and governments as one of the subheadings for this strategy document. And the location governance, the first bullet point says, evacuation is deemed necessary due to the ongoing conflict with Hamas with the goal of protecting non-combatant civilians. Okay, so far, this strategy document makes the Israelis seem humane. Let's see if that continues on for the rest of these bullet points. Israel would take the lead in evacuating the civilian population to the Sinai Peninsula. Okay, so they're immediately talking about removing the population from their homeland. And we have every indication to believe, and we'll probably talk about it later in this document, that those people will never be allowed to go back to their homes, considering what the Israelis have done to prior Palestinian homes once they've taken it over. The third bullet point says temporary tent cities would be established in the Sinai as a first step, followed by the creation of humanitarian centers for assistance to Gaza's civilian population and the construction of new settlements in northern Sinai Peninsula. Okay, so if it started off at the first part with the tent city, I would maybe potentially assume that this is a temporary location, but it sounds like from the rest of this third bullet point that actually the Israelis plan on permanently relocating the Palestinian population out of Palestine and into the Sinai Peninsula. And it's kind of funny that they're doing this. I mean, funny in the most tragic, sad way possible, but they are essentially pushing the Palestinians into the desert which, if you know your Jewish history, there was a time when Jews had to flee Egypt into the desert, and they were stuck there for 40 years. And so we have this concerning situation where they are planning on permanently relocating the Palestinian population. So let's see what this final bullet point says. Israel should establish a sterile zone within Egypt and prevent any return of the civilian population to areas near the Israeli border, creating a security buffer zone. Wow, this is a strange way of wording things. I don't know if it's just because of the translation from Hebrew to English, but the way they talk about Egypt, it certainly sounds like Egypt has no say over the situation in the Sinai Peninsula, despite that being their territory. I mean, this isn't Israel moving people from Palestine into Israeli-controlled territory, but it certainly sounds like it is Israel moving people from Palestine into other territory that Israel controls. I mean, if you were concerned that the Egyptian government was controlled by Israel, you should, if you weren't concerned about that already, you certainly should be, given this bullet point, because they make it sound like the Egyptian government will do absolutely anything, including giving up some of their own territory to the Israelis in order for the Israeli population to displace and genocide Palestinians, which I don't agree that should be happening. I don't know what world we're living in that is something that is allowed to happen, but let's move on. Okay, so how are they going to execute this plan? They're going to start off with a call for evacuation of non-combatant civilians from the targeted areas. Okay, very humane. They're going to go on to air operations with the focus on the northern part of Gaza to allow ground evacuation without the need for combat in populated areas. Okay, so they're trying to push people to flee south, which is exactly what they've said they wanted to do. And sure, this document may have been created after the fact based off of Israel pushing the population south. But why did it choose to push the population south? And that is probably because it is the only place where Palestine shares a land border, or I should say it's the only place where Gaza shares a land border with another nation. And so if you actually did want to push the Palestinians out of Gaza, you would want to push them south. So this does provide at least some evidence that Israel is trying to push the population either into the sea or into Egypt. But if you're going from north to south, it does sound like it's going to push them into Egypt. Okay, then it says gradual ground operations to occupy the territory starting from the north and moving along the border, clearing underground bunkers used by Hamas. Okay, so that sounds like what they're doing. They were going to do a full ground invasion, and it sounds like that's not going to work. So they're doing these tentative attacks as much as possible. Fourth, intensive ground operations should reduce the time of exposure to opening a northern front while combat is ongoing in Gaza. Okay, so I don't know when this security document was created or if it's even like a forgery or something like that, but that does sound like what they're doing right now, which is that they don't want to have to be engaged in Gaza, completely engaged in Gaza, while fighting a war with Hezbollah. And so what they're doing is they're doing these pinprick attacks, strategic attacks, and then fleeing so that if they are attacked on their northern border, their forces are capable of pivoting to fight on the northern border. Although now that I think about it, that's actually another good reason why you'd want to go from north to south that doesn't have to do with pushing the Palestinian population into Egypt, which is that you are closer to the northern border at the time if you're pushing from north to south in Gaza, in which case you could pivot the troops slightly faster to face a threat from Hezbollah. So there are some reasons that this document may not be true and that they may have other reasons for the north to south strategy, but I personally do believe that they are trying to remove the population entirely. And I have other videos that we'll go over in terms of how they're talking about Palestinians that would lead me to believe that they really don't consider Palestinians to be non-combatants. They don't consider Palestinians to be humans. And so I don't think that they're going to be treating people particularly humanely. And so I don't think that this is just a matter of going from north to south to counter Hezbollah or make sure that Hezbollah can't attack while they're sunk into Gaza. Okay. Ensuring pathways for civilian evacuation to the south, which will be crucial for evacuating the non-combatant population towards Rafah. Okay, sure. All right, let's look at the international legal legitimacy section of this document. This alternative involving the significant evacuation of the civilian population may initially face international legitimacy challenges. Yeah, no duh. I mean, that's the phase we're in right now, and I certainly hope we stay in that phase. We should not consider this type of thing to be legitimate. The second bullet point, it is estimated that post-evacuation combat is likely to cause fewer civilian casualties compared to scenarios presented in alternatives A and B. Okay, well, I don't have alternatives A and B yet. I don't know if those were leaked or not. But, I mean, if you're trying to be as positive as possible, at the very least, they are considering civilian casualties here. But again, they are completely displacing the population in order to take their territory when, after World War II, the Palestinians welcomed them with open arms. So, like, this is horrific. It's just absolutely horrific. And now the Israelis are bringing in people from Brooklyn to take over Palestinians' houses. And it's just like, I don't get this. But anyways, let's finish this document. Please note that the success and ethical implications of such a strategy would be highly complex and contentious. Evacuating civilians on such a scale would raise significant humanitarian, legal, and political challenges, including the agreement and cooperation of other nations, particularly Egypt, who would have to accept and accommodate the evacuated population. In the Sinai Peninsula, it's crucial to consider the humanitarian aspect and the impact on the civilian population during any military operation. Okay. Wow, this is, I mean, it's not the worst thing that's come out of Israel so far. I mean, in terms of the inhumane language they've used to describe Palestinians and the atrocities that Israel has been committed, but like, it's still really bad. They are still planning on taking over Gaza completely. So this is supposedly an Israeli Ministry of Intelligence document, and take that for what it's worth, but considering how things are going in the Middle East with the supplies, with the troop transports, with the warships, I do think they might have miscalculated to a certain extent, partially because prior wars have not fomented this level of backlash for Israel. Israel has attacked other Arabic neighbors frequently throughout its history. It's a very short history. And so I just don't think when they came up with these plans, they expected so many people to be openly hostile towards Zionism. I mean, if you're watching this channel, you probably know at this point that I am very against Zionism, not against Jewish people, I should remind you. I am Greek, Italian, and Jewish, so I'm not against Jewish people, but I am strongly against Zionism. And there are other people of full or partial Jewish descent that are also against Zionism. It sounds like Albert Einstein was against Zionism, Max Blumenthal, Aaron Mate, Glenn Greenwald. I mean, there's a ton of modern people in politics, in journalism, in geopolitical analysts, things like that, that are against Zionism. And so I just want to reiterate that people like myself are against the Zionist state of Israel and against Zionism, but not against the Jewish faith. So I think that's where I'll leave you right now. This is an interesting situation we find ourselves. Obviously a sad situation. I just use the word interesting when I don't know what to say. I'm pretty much speechless. But all indications are still that we are headed towards a world war. I know my thumbnails have just consistently talked about World War III, and there's a ton of evidence that all it takes is one nation on the other side to just declare it, and then I think it would lead to a domino effect of other nations also declaring it. But anyways, that's where I'll leave you. Thank you for watching. If you found this to be informative, please give us a thumbs up. It helps us in the algorithm. Please subscribe to our channel for more content on YouTube and Rumble. And please leave a comment in the comment box below with any of your concerns, critiques, questions, etc. Thanks again for watching, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye.